He's not a villain because he started the First World War, because he didn't. For over centuries, history has pointed its fingers at one name, Gavrilo Princip, a teenager, 19 years old, and somehow we accepted that one boy, barely an adult, triggered a world war that dragged the entire world into chaos. But let's think about it for a second. A single boy versus global superpowers, empires, armies, alliances. Does that explanation really make sense to you? Or is it just convenient? Hmm. Because, yeah, it's true. Yeah, it is true. On June 28th of 1914, Gavrilo Princip shot Archduke Franz Ferdinand. And exactly 1 month later, remember, 1 month later, Europe was at war. That part is not up for debate, but here is what most people were never taught to question. Was that moment the cause of the World War? Or was it simply the moment everything that had been building at the back end finally snapped? Because if one gunshot can start a world war, then the world must have already been standing on very thin ice. So let's rewind. Not to the assassination, but to the tension. See, before 1914, Europe wasn't peaceful. It was armed, aggressively armed. Britain had built the most powerful navy the world had ever seen, not just for defense, but for dominance. Then came Germany, rising fast, ambitious, determined to be seen as a global power. So, what did they do? They started building battleships, weapons, armies, and Britain noticed. So, Britain obviously responded, and Germany responded back. And just like that, a silent competition turned into a full blown arms race, each nation preparing for a war they hadn't declared, but clearly they were expecting. Now, let me ask you, if two rivals are constantly preparing for battle, is it peace? Is peace actually present, or is the war just delayed? Hmm. Now, imagine that tension multiplied, because Europe didn't just have powerful nations, it had connected nations through alliances. On one side, Britain, France, and Russia. On the other, Germany, Austria, Hungary, and the Ottoman Empire. And these weren't casual friendships, these were binding agreements. If you go to war, I go to war. If you are attacked, I am attacked. So we will fight together. So, what does that mean to you? It means if there is ever a small conflict, it can never stay small. Because when one country moves, suddenly five are solidly behind it and they are now involved. Not because they want to, but because they've pledged to through an alliance. This is not stability. Mm-mm. The alliance system was designed to collapse under pressure. Now, let's zoom out beyond Europe, because the truth is, all of this competition wasn't just happening in Europe, it had expanded across Africa and Asia. Empires were expanding, and of course, where were they expanding? In the African and Asian territories. Territories were being claimed, resources were being taken. Power wasn't just about armies anymore, it was about control. And here's where things got even more complicated. Germany arrived to the race of global, acquisition very late. While Britain and France already controlled vast territories, Germany wanted its own share, and that created tension. Because in a world where power equals dominance, any new competitor becomes a threat. You see? So now you have nations competing for global control, nations building massive militaries, nations forming defensive alliances. Let me pause you here. At this point in this story, do you still think the world was stable? Or does it sound like everything was already on edge? Tell me in the comments, was war avoidable at this stage or inevitable? And then there was nationalism, not the healthy kind of nationalism, not pride in your country, but the type that says, my nation is better than yours, my people deserve more power than yours. It spread across Europe like wildfire, and in places like the Balkans, especially Serbia, it became explosive. Because now people didn't just support their nations, they were fighting to fight, they were willing to fight and die for them. So when Austria Hungary reacted to the assassination, Serbia wasn't alone. Russia stepped in. Not slowly, not cautiously, but immediately. Because nationalism doesn't negotiate, it reacts. And the alliance between Russia and Serbia was based on a common heritage, a common language, and common history. So now, let's return to the story we were told. The boy, Gavrilo Princip. Yes, he pulled the trigger. Yes, his actions mattered. But look at everything we've just uncovered. A heavily armed Europe, a fragile alliance system, global competition for power, explosive nationalism. That war didn't begin with him. That war was already loading. He just lit the matches in a room filled with fear. Yeah. So maybe history got it slightly wrong. Maybe this isn't the story of a villain who started a war. Maybe it's a story of powerful nations, you know, that we're already preparing for one, just waiting for the right moment. And when that moment came, they didn't hesitate. So now I would ask you, was Gavrilo Princip truly the villain that history told you he was? Or just the easiest person to blame? Did he even deserve a blame? Drop your answer in the comments. And if this changed how you see history, don't stop here. Follow this channel, like this video, and share it to someone who thinks history is just dates and names. Because over here, we don't just tell history, we rethink it through war stories. Well. We've come to the end of this episode. So now I'll ask you, was Gavrilo Princip? So now I will ask you, was Gavrilo Princip truly the villain or just the easiest person to blame in history? Drop your answers in the comments. And if this changed how you see history, don't stop here. Follow this channel, like this video, and share it with someone who thinks history is just dates and names. Because here, we don't just tell history, we rethink it. Okay, bye.